one of the crew, my grandfather, who was on one of the usual square riggers in the middle of last century, and they had a frightful battering off Cape Horn. When they got round a bit further to Staten Island, they got another fierce battering there, and the captain decided he'd have to abandon ship because she was going to sink. The pumps couldn't keep up with the water, and so the crew of the whole lot of them, 12 of them, got into the whaleboat, which was the only whole boat they had left, and set out for Port Stanley. And an open boat it was. It took them 12 days, but they all got here.
My grandfather ran away to marry my grandmother. And they came to the Falklands in a sailing ship. And when they arrived, they had 3 children. And they bought a house, which I am now living in. And my father was born in that house in 1853.
I think I'm about the 5th generation on my mother's side, and on my father's side, about the 3rd. So we go back some way. We're all genuine islanders, thoroughbreds.
The first member of my family to arrive in the islands was James Biggs, who arrived in 1842 with Governor Moody, who was the first governor of the Falklands. Since then, my family have lived here for 6 generations, and my children are the 7th to live here.
The Falkland Islanders are a people unto themselves. We have developed our way of life over that period of time. We have learnt to live together and with each other, supporting each other, doing all the daily tasks that go to make up our life, including the production of wool, the production of our meat, our vegetables, our fuel. But this is something that is unique. We do not want it to be part of a general civilization. This is a people with a culture of its own. It's not everybody's cup of tea, spending 6 or 8 hours jogging around on a horse, come rain or shine. But again, on a nice day, a pleasant sort of situation to be sitting on the back of the horse, jogging across the countryside. Absolutely fabulous. Their dogs and their horses are almost their life. Their wives are an important part of their life, but the dog and the horse is the right hand and left hand of your shepherd.
As I see it, there's not one but 2 ways of life in the Falklands. There's life in what we call the camp, that's the settlements out in the country, and there's Stanley.
Fine ships, big beams, fancy please.
Yep. It's 175, please. You want to go?
Still come for coffee.
See you.
Good to have you.
The islanders are known as kelpers. Kelp is a particular form of seaweed found in the Falklands. Most of our stamp designs deal with natural history. It's one way of telling the world about the flora and fauna we've got here, the amazing richness of wildlife in the Falklands. And philately is, of course, our second most important economic activity. It produces about 20% of the island's revenue.
As members will know, we have at the moment 2 Islander aircraft, and Executive Council discussed whether it would be sensible to purchase a third.
The Legislative Council obviously legislates, passes laws, and then through the year there is a standing finance committee which handles all the financial matters.
What sort of price are we talking about? How much money?
Well, we're talking about £300,000 for a new Islander.
As the vote is controlled entirely by the elected members, the control of the finance through those elected members comes directly from the islanders themselves.
It's for replacement of the existing. Have we got the sort of money that's been asked for?
The Government Air Service was formed as a social service for the people of the Falklands. We serve a total of 35 settlements. We take doctors round every week on visits to 1 or 2 settlements. Urgent medical supplies are sometimes dropped, and we, of course, rotate medicine chests as necessary and replenish them.
Bit of a fresh one. So
Real Hill Cove landing for you today.
Okay, girls. All right, we're going to Lively today.
Could you take the...
Okie doke. So you're for Stanley, are you? Yes. Okie doke. Sorry, both of you for Stanley? Yes. Righto. Okay. We're going East Cove and then Stanley. Righty-ho. If you'd like to come round this side, we'll put you in. We'll fasten you in here. If you just go on this road behind the driver, that's great. And fasten your seatbelts tightly, please. Because it's a wee bit bumpy. And you want
The schedule of flights for Thursday, the 22nd of November. First Islander, first flight to Johnson Harbour and Stanley. Passenger, Miss Patrick. Second flight to Bleaker Island, Sea Lion Island, North Arm, Roy Cove, Carcass Island, Saunders Island, Salvador and Stanley. With passengers Mr. and Mrs. Corbett, Mr. and Mrs. Howe, Mr. and Mrs. Goodwin and dog, Mrs. Alsop, Miss Patrick, Dr. Marsden and the Messies Davies, Stevens, Kilby, Rayner and Morgan.
News of a slideshow. A showing of slides taken at South Georgia and the Antarctic will take place in the refreshment room of the Town Hall on Wednesday, the 21st of November, commencing at 8 p.m. All are welcome, admission free.
Hello, Stanley. Johnson's calling. Can you hear me, Doctor?
Yep, hello, Connie. What's the next case over?
A girl of age 12 called Lisa Smith, who cut herself with a barbed wire fence 3 days ago. I think there may be some pus in the wound, over.
Hello, Connie. Yeah, I got that fine. Sounds as though it's a little bit infected, in which case you probably need an antibiotic. So if you'd like to look in the medicine chest, on page 1, I think under code letter Golf, the medicine is flucloxacillin, 1 tablet 4 times a day, and that for 5 days. And that should help clear it up. So I hope you got all that clearly, Connie, over.
Yes, got that fine, Doctor, thank you. I'll say cheers, mate, for now.
This is BBQ.
BBQ, double O, John?
Good day to you, Ian. Have you got your reading book there in front of you?
I've got it here, sir. Page...
I teach 2 children by radio. Ian MacLeod is on George Island. George Island is about 25 miles away.
Isn't it, sir?
That's right, yes. Page 33. All right, off you go.
Dom nodded. He did not seem at all afraid.
that Ben would help the Dings. I think that Oh, I'm stuck there, sir.
Yes, that word is a little difficult, Ian. Think of it as two parts. If I was to say to you, I think that per...
What do you think the word would end with?
Perhaps. I think that perhaps you may have come just in time to save the last of the Dings. Of the Dongs, Blue Pirate. Sir?
Very good, Ian. You read quite confidently today. So, I'll say cheers to you. Goodbye.
Bye!
Well, I must say I was very surprised when I saw on the peat banks on one evening our financial secretary. Now, he is the equivalent of Chancellor of the Exchequer and the Governor of the Bank of England roll into one, and there he was cutting his own peat bank. And I say, well, do I have to do that? They say, oh no, you're the only person who doesn't have to cut his own peat. Everybody else has.
I never measure the peat I cut. I just work until I'm ready to go home. If you pick a sod up on the end of the spade, especially the real wet ones on the inside here, it's heavy. And you fill a wheelbarrow and pick that up, it's fairly heavy. When I finished here, I wondered why I do it too, because the shoulders are sore, the stomach muscles are sore, but it's one way of getting you cheap fuel, I suppose.
It was something that I hadn't come across before. What a do-it-yourself society this place is, that I couldn't buy any bread when I first came here. Everybody baked their own bread. Everybody grew their own vegetables. Everybody did their own hair and butchered their own meat, even built their own houses and repaired their own Land Rovers. And I found this a very, very encouraging thing. And it was, I think, a quality that these islanders have that we've lost in more advanced countries. They have got this self-reliance, a colossal self-reliance. They are a sturdy, hardy, independent people.
For the purpose of avoiding bloodshed and property damage among the population, we hope that you shall act prudently.
And we've lost contact with the governor on the direct line.
I thought it wouldn't happen still at that time. I thought they'd turn around and go back. So I eventually went off to bed about just after midnight. But about 4 o'clock in the morning, there's one hell of an explosion at Moody Brook. And I realised then that the bastards meant business.
It was all sad. Very, very sad, really. And of course, the lasting reminder is the Argentine minefields. They're too dangerous to clear just now, so we just have to live with them. God knows how long it'll be.
It was incredible, the amount of damage and absolute mess there was here after just 2.5 months of occupation. We have 366 houses in Stanley. Over half of those were damaged to some extent or another. So we first had to get the materials in, the wood and the glass, the roofing. We had to get repairing the houses we had, and we had to start rebuilding. We also had to get the roads repaired. The roads were in a terrible mess after the war. We had to get concrete down onto those roads. We had to get the electricity going again and the water going again. And that took up our first year at least.
The
military role in the Falkland Islands is purely a defensive one. I see us being here really to deter any further aggression by anybody and to make sure that the Falkland Islanders are allowed to choose their way of life and to live in a freely elected democratic society.
One of the recommendations of Lord Shackleton's report was the setting up of a development corporation. And when I came back after the war, I set that as my top priority because I think that the Falkland Islands Development Corporation is the best thing we could have to help small businesses get started on these islands. And I'm very glad to say that we've now got the corporation running, and we've selected a man from industry in Britain to run it called David Taylor.
The essence of the Falkland Islands Development Corporation is to provide financial assistance to what are potentially commercially viable projects, which we hope will both increase the wealth of the islands and improve the quality of life in the islands. Of the funds which have been provided, something like 50% has to go on infrastructure. This is renewing the electricity supply and distribution, improving the water supply, installing a whole new modern telecommunications system. The things which are needed to really provide the basic underpinning for the development which we expect to happen in the future. In 1977, the government began the process of purchasing some large farms and subdividing them and selling off the subdivisions to Falkland Islanders, mainly with government assistance by way of loans. Now, the thinking behind this is one of giving Falkland Islanders a stake in their own land. A very good example that I can think of is Bernard Betts at Boundary Farm.
Well, as I said, for 29 years I've worked for someone else, and I felt it's about time that I'd done something for myself and done things my own way, how I felt like doing them, and hoped they would work out. You know, be my own boss and do just what I feel like doing.
It's just nice to think it is your own, and what you do is you can do what you want and work. In the past couple of years, we've worked harder, I think, you know, longer hours and things, because you're working for yourself. When you work on a farm, you have your turn to and knock-off times. When you're working for yourself, you work until things are finished.
Something which is particularly important for the small farmers is agricultural research. Research may sound rather boring, but in fact it's extremely important to lay the foundations on which agricultural productivity of wool can be increased in the islands, particularly by the sort of small farmers that are being created by the land subdivision policy.
Well, that tidies up the electricity supply quite nicely there. We're within budget. So I think we better have a look at the water supply. Before we do that, we better just check the graph on what we've spent so far and make sure we're still well within allowance on this. And calculate that out. The development in Fox Bay is important to all of us because it changes the pattern of what we've seen historically in the Falkland Islands. Normally, most people in the Falklands work for large farms. Their whole life revolves around that farm. Here we're seeing the chance for individuals to develop exciting new enterprises. Here in Fox Bay, for instance, we have a spinning mill being developed. Shortly, we hope it'll be producing Falkland Island wool produced in the Falklands by Falkland Islanders.
Let's check that. That seems to be all fitting in okay. All right. Yeah, that's quite nice. Fox Bay is unique in being the first village as such in the Falklands where all the houses are either rented or independently owned, and so people are not employed and living in tied houses. They are actually living in their own houses. We have our own dairy, which is an independent business set up by somebody. We have a cooperative store, which every member of the village is a member of. There's a fishing business starting up here. So it is hopefully becoming a total community rather than just a sheep farm.
What else have we got?
Two tomato sauce.
Yep.
2 beans.
2 beans.
For the last 150 years, the Falkland Islands have been producing very high quality wool from our sheep. And this wool has been going all over the world where other people have been processing it into knitwear and what have you. We feel it is time that the Falkland Islands started producing their own knitwear, their own yarn, and their own gloves, hats, whatever, to export all over the world so that more money rubs off here.
I think the greatest development since the war is the new airport. I think that this is something that Lord Shackleton recommended a while ago, an 8,500-foot runway that would take wide-bodied jets. I think this will open up the islands as nothing else would.
Well, I really see the economic development of the islands as following 2 routes. First of all, we obviously want to do some new things, using the resources of the islands that have not been used in the past, such as fisheries. Secondly, we want to do some of the things which have been done in the past very much better, whilst preserving the traditional way of life.
I don't understand too much about politics, but what I want to do is the practical things and to get on with it. And I believe that if we can be seen to be doing something and going ahead, that we will get support from the rest of the world. But I think we must be seen to be going ahead.
Well, the main thing is we want us the right to self-determination, to determine our own future.
This is home. My grandfather built the house down below us. My father was born there. My boys and family live there, and so it's home to us.
Yeah, well, I've been to different countries. I've been all around South America, England. I've been to Australia, but I always come back here. I was born here and brought up here, and it's my home, and I just hope to stay here.